Hello and welcome to the birthday episode of the Welcome to My 10 podcast. It is July 5th when this airs, and it's actually July 4th currently. So this is actually very much so almost in real time. But I am going to do something on the pod today that I typically do as a static post or a blog post every year on my birthday. And that is the 34 things I've learned in 34 years. I will be 34 when this is airing, as you are listening. I am currently 34 years old. And every year I kind of recap what I've learned, what I think, and put that into some type of content. And this year it is a podcast because this is the first year I have a podcast on my birthday. So I'm really amped. And I really took some time to think about these things and write them down. And I'll give some anecdotes and stories behind why I put some of these in here. And I have no idea if this episode's going to be like 4 minutes or 4 hours. I have no idea how this is going to go, but I think you have to try something once to know how it works and if you like it. So we're going to do this together. Okay? Okay. Here we go. Hi. Hello. Hey. And welcome to my tent, a place to hear life experiences, different opinions, a range of journeys, and a viewpoint different than our own. A place to challenge our own thoughts, a space to learn a little bit, and I promise some fun along the way. I believe we're better when we let a range of people into our tents. So welcome to mine. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Again, whenever you are listening to this podcast, thank you for tuning in to the Welcome to My 10 podcast. I am amped for today's episode because this is the birthday episode. This is my 34th birthday. And we're going to get into 34 things I have learned in 34 years. But I always like to give a little bit of a life update and a recap in these solo episodes. And before we get into the content, the updates on my end, I just got back from Sedona with one of my best friends, Ashley. She's been on this podcast actually before, so if you want to go listen to her episode, you should. She had some client work there for a wedding she's doing in October, and I got to tag along on her trip for work, and we did 48 hours in Sedona, which is one of the coolest places I've ever been. It felt like I was on Mars. That is how different it feels from Phoenix, which is 2 hours south of Sedona. But the hiking was incredible. The food was incredible. And just the overall scenery and vibe. I'll do a recap of where we went, what we hiked, and the food and whatnot, probably over on Instagram when I can get my shit together. But I really enjoyed it. And we went to a psychic, which was fascinating. And I'll get into that, probably not in this episode, but it was wild. There was just so many things that she called out and said that there's no way that she would have known, in my opinion. So that was really fascinating as well. But it was so nice to just get away for a sec. And I said this on social as well, but for me, it is really important to have these weekends where I get my solo time. And Ashley and I both actually have babies. Ashley's baby is 6 months. Ronan's just a year. And we were both solo. And it is a really big thing for me too, to also empower Duke to be a parent. We both parent in the same way. We agree on how we want to approach Ronan. And I had all the confidence in the world that he would do an incredible job. So it was important for me to do that. And I was originally going to bring him, and then it just didn't feel right. Ronan's going through some like big feelings and some sleep stuff. And I didn't feel like it was fair or it would provide him value to have to adjust himself that much for the weekend. And so Duke took the weekend with him. And some people are going to tell me I'm selfish for taking a girls' weekend. And I don't really find that fair because I still did not compromise my child in any way because partners are parents too. So that's my 2 cents on that. But other than that, it is the 4th of July today. We are going to be going over to my brother and sister-in-law's to just swim, do a barbecue, hang out, and it'll be really casual. And I'm back on the grind tomorrow with work. So I had yesterday off and today off, and I will be back doing things tomorrow, even though, yes, it is my birthday. But I don't really care to take it off because we'll do a lot of celebrating today. And I did a lot of celebrating this past weekend. So I'm chill with that. But speaking of my birthday, we can get into the content here. And I have my list, my little written list of 34 things I've learned in 34 years. And some of this are things that I say frequently if you follow along on social or have even listened to other episodes of this podcast. But I did really put some thought into this, and I also found it very therapeutic to write down this list just to get my own head straight. And I'm excited to be sharing it with you today. So we're just going to go in order. Number 1, there isn't much that you can't figure out. With this one, it's really important for me to remind myself of this because some things feel so high stakes in the moment and so stressful and so overwhelming, you feel like there's no end in sight or there's no way out. But if you really take a step back and look at it objectively and I have to calm my own anxieties of this isn't going to plan. We need to pivot. I first have to sort of accept that mindset. There really aren't a lot of things that you cannot find another game plan for. But it's really up to you and myself to embrace that rather than really resist it, because I find that when I resist something that's not going to plan, I'm really resistant to being open to other options. And I mean, there's just very few things in my life that have really never not worked themselves out or I've pivoted and figured out, but really taking a step back, taking a few deep breaths and saying, okay, we're going to have to figure this out. It's not what we expected, but we can find solutions. That's my number 1. Number 2, life isn't pie. The more for someone else doesn't mean less for you. This was a huge one for me to actually come to terms to, and I don't really think I did fully embrace this mindset until the past few years. So for me, I used to really struggle with, that person has something, which means I can't have it, whether it's a promotion or they get a new position or they're on social and they're getting a partnership or they're getting even something of monetary value or a gift of some sort. I used to take this mindset of if they have it, there's less for me. What I now do is I think of life as this energetic thing. Yes, I guess there's certain things that if someone has like an extremely customizable like Lamborghini or something, sure, I'm probably never going to have that exact thing because it's very specific, but I've stopped thinking about it in monetary value. I've started to think about it in terms of health, prosperity, wellness, because that stuff's infinite. Just because someone else has something doesn't mean that you can't also go after it. It might not look exactly the same as that person has, but it doesn't mean there's less for you, and it doesn't mean that you can't be happy for them. I used to be very bitter about all this stuff, and changing that mindset really, really, really helped me in a lot of aspects. Number 3, productivity can mean a million things. And this is something that I used to it's very much so heavily tied to my wealth and how many things I used to get done a day. I used to only find myself productive if I crossed off my entire to-do list. I was excelling at work. I was getting everything done in a day, even if that was at the expense of myself. But productive can also mean I take a nap, I rest, I don't work out that day, I spend the 30 minutes instead journaling or sitting outside or slowing down. Slowing down is productive. And I just had this conversation the other day with someone who is going through IVF, and she's like, I don't have a job currently and I feel like I'm not being productive. And I'm like, but you are being productive. You have a job and it's an important one. And don't forget that we shouldn't only tie our value to how much we get done in a given day. So that's that. Number 4, at the end of the day, you liking you matters. I did an entire episode about this where a lot of people have called me too much in my life, and you can go back and listen to that if you want the full details of that whole journey. But that is what helped me realize that me liking me matters, because I used to be so people pleasing, where my first emphasis was getting other people to like me. But what ended up happening is I didn't like me because I didn't like who I'd become and I didn't like who I was being. So you have to like you. And that's going to come at the expense of a journey sometimes and some really painful points. But when you can get to that position of I like me, it actually like opened my world up to a gazillion other things that are nothing but beneficial. Number 5, learning to genuinely cheer for others will bring you more good. This kind of ties back to the pie situation that we were just talking about, where I had a really hard time for a long time, like cheering on other people, mostly due to jealousy. We'll just call a spade there. But I genuinely believe that there is a universal thing that happens where when you put out good and you put out positivity for someone else, you're bringing this good karma to your energetic universe that it does come back to you. When I stopped being such a bitter kind of pill of a person, so many more doors open for me, and my authenticness and genuineness actually was able to flourish because I'm not playing in this competitive space anymore. I'm learning to cheer for other people in their journey. Number 6, not everyone will like you, and that's okay. Don't force them. A lot of these are going to tie together because this is a big one where when I was in those people pleasing tendencies, I wanted every single person to like me. At the end of the day, there are just going to be some people that don't. And I really find discomfort with that feeling. I still even do, where I really find that hard and uncomfortable, and I feel icky, mostly because I can't figure out why don't they like me. But I've come to the terms with the fact that that's okay. For a long time, I was also focusing on the wrong people. I was putting a lot of energy into trying to force these people that didn't align to me to be my friend or to like me or to give me approval. And I was wasting time with the people that did love me. I wasn't putting my energy into the right buckets. So it's okay to let that go. It's okay to not force these people to try to be on your wavelength. Not everyone is meant for us, and that is okay. Number 7, make decisions that you would be proud of yourself for in 30 years. So this kind of relates to how I think about parenting at the moment, but I think it can apply to life in general. But I try to take the mindset of when I'm making choices around being with my son or playing with my son, or even the challenging moments where he's gotten up for the 3rd time that night and I'm rocking him to sleep again. As I'm sitting there and holding him, I think about myself in 30 years and know that I won't regret that moment. I won't regret that decision. And if I look at it so much more out in the future, I will know that that moment is just a moment in time and it does go fast. But are these choices things that I'm going to be proud of myself for when I am 60, 70, 80, 90? On my deathbed, I'm not going to care if I close that deal one day faster at work. I'm going to care about how I spend time with my family and spend time with my son, because it does go fast. I know that's cliche. Number 8, small steps create big impact. This is a conversation I have frequently with clients that I work with in fitness and in health, where a lot of times we're looking for a very quick fix. And I hate to break this to you, but long-term success will never come from a quick fix. People come to me saying, I have an event in 2 weeks and I want to lose whatever amount of pounds. That's not going to work because you're not creating habits that are sustainable for long-term health. And it does kind of suck to hear that. I get that because we don't want to have to change and we want something that seems easy that's going to be a fix-all for our problems. But where I tell people to start is small. Because if you are someone, for example, that's never exercised a day in your life, and you say, I'm going to start exercising and I'm going to exercise 7 days a week for at least 1 hour. That is too big of a change to make. And at some point, probably pretty quickly in that journey, you're going to think that's unsustainable, overwhelming. You're going to get this sense of feeling like a failure, and you're going to stop. So instead of doing that 7 days a week, why don't you say for three times a week, I'm going to spend 20 to 30 minutes exercising. Do that for 2 months. Once you get used to that habit, maybe make that still 3 days a week, but then 35 or 40 minutes. Then you can start to add a day. Then you can start to really tweak with things over time, because you're going to want to find something that doesn't make you feel like you can't do it. It has to be realistically challenging. But even it's the same thing with journaling or meditation or any type of practice that you want to bring in. You can't go 0 to 100 overnight. Small steps equal very big impact. So start small. Number 9, meet people. Be nice, be gracious, and respect everyone. And you have no idea how the power of the worlds will connect that in the future. So this is something I actually take in a corporate sense, but you can also apply it just to humans you meet in general. But I really strive to meet as many people as possible and respect everyone that I meet, because everyone's going to have something that you don't, whether that's the CEO of the company or the 21-year-old intern that just started. Everyone has value and everyone has a place that is important. And you never know who these people are also connected to, will become, how they may cross paths with you back in the future. And your first impression means a lot. And I forget the exact number. I think it's like someone makes an impression of you within 4 seconds of meeting you. And people remember that. People will remember if they had a bad experience with you. So be nice, be open, meet everyone. No one should be off limits. No one should be beneath you or too above you. Just shake their hand or say, hi, I'm Sarah. It's really nice to meet you. You have no idea where that's going to come back to you in the future. Number 10, some days you just got to go to bed and try again the next day. This may be controversial. I think there's that big conversation around never go to bed angry. You know what? Some days just fucking suck. Like, it is what it is. And some days, even though I've done everything that I can think of to try to make my mood better or my day better or feel better, it's just not working. Forgive yourself for that. Let it go and just say, you know what? I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to wake up and try again. And it's okay if you just need to go and do that, because not every day is going to be a 10 out of 10. And not every day you're going to be able to feel like you can get out of your funk. I promise you will. And some days for me, that just means going to bed and saying, all right, I'll see you later. I'll see you tomorrow. Number 11, you have survived 100% of the bad days. That is a 100% track record. This makes me think of my time during infertility and IVF, where there were some dark moments, and I'm talking dark. And even through those days, I would remind myself, Sarah, you have survived 100% of your bad days, and you have made it through, and you can do this as well. So that one's pretty simple. Number 12, trust your gut. If the vibes are off, there is a reason for that. I think I was talking to my friend Alexa. She's going to be on an episode coming up where she was saying that we need to listen to our intuition more. And by that, you don't want to have your intuition end up screaming at you. Because a lot of times it starts off quiet, but there's that little nagging feeling sometimes where you just got to say, the vibe is off. Something doesn't feel right here. Listen to it when it's quiet, because you don't want to get to the point where you're like, whoa, I knew it and I should have gone with my gut. I should have listened to myself and I didn't. So trust yourself. Number 13, try to accept that not everyone is going to be comfortable with your discomfort, and you will find connection in some surprising places. This has really come out in my life via the death of my dad and infertility, where I really expected certain people to show up that didn't, but I found a lot of really surprising people came out of the woodwork and were some of my biggest advocates and biggest supporters and biggest help. And that's okay. What I've come to realize is that a lot of people are going to be really uncomfortable with your discomfort, whether you're going through a hard time with whatever you may be going through. Some people just haven't experienced that yet. Some people really kind of get through life a little less unscathed than others. It's just how it is. But if they haven't been there, they're probably going to be really uncomfortable and not react the way that you think they would. And I held it against people for a little bit. I've really worked through it, but I've leaned into the people who surprised me. And some of these people have become cherished humans in my life, and let those people help, because some of the most empathetic and understanding people are unfortunately the ones that have gone through the most. And those are the people that usually know how to show up. So don't fault anyone for not being able to understand it. Know that you can find your people. It just might not be the ones that you originally thought. Number 14, be around people who want the best for you. This also kind of goes back to also cheering for other people and understanding that more for someone else isn't less for you. There are going to be people in this world that don't want the best for you. And that actually may be some people that hurt. I've been there and I get it. But there are going to be people who genuinely cheer you on and want the best for you and will bring you that joy and love along the way. And surround yourself with those people, because those are the ones that give you the energy, not take it away. Because energy is a currency. Energy is money. Think about it like that. You have a bucket of energy, aka money. When you spend it, it's gone. So who are you going to be spending it on? People that then give it back to you and fill your energy bucket up, or people that just take it away and deplete it and never really give anything back to you? You know? Number 15, it's okay to struggle. You're not alone or broken or shameful. This one I think is really in relation more so to my mental health, where I've always struggled with anxiety and depression, but postpartum I had some really scary invasive thoughts, and I thought that I was completely broken. But when I opened up about it, I was shocked with the floods of messages that I was getting that people had a similar experience. And it made me realize that I think so many of us struggle in silence because we feel like nobody else is going to get it. If we also admit that we struggle, it doesn't mean that we're any less of a person. It means we are human. We are human beings with feelings and things that happen. And everyone wants to portray themselves as the best version of themselves. And I get that. I do believe there's value in putting your best foot forward, but when we admit that we struggle, we also find genuine connection and people that can help us through that. We will be able to put our best foot forward again. So it's okay to struggle. It's okay to need help. And it's okay to admit that. Number 16, failure is feedback. You can learn, but it also doesn't mean there has to be a silver lining. I have failed a lot of times in my life. And I mean like straight up failed. I didn't get into my first choice college the first time. I had to transfer into that college. I haven't gotten jobs or promotions. I haven't gotten brand partnerships that I've really wanted. Things sometimes just don't work out. But it's not failure, it's feedback. What did I learn from that experience that I can apply to the future? What is this showing me that I can work on, that I can change? Everything is going to teach you something, and it really doesn't feel good to fail, yes, but I find it really helps when I sit down and actually write about it and say, here's the scenario, here's what happened, and mostly here's what I controlled. There's always going to be external factors that play into something. So while I hate to say this, if I'm going for a job and the CEO's son is going for the job and we have the exact same resume and qualifications, who do you think is going to get the job? Right? So there are certain things that I can control and that is out of my control. And look at those factors, narrow it down to the things that you can control, and listen to that feedback and figure out if there's tweaks in the future. it also doesn't mean there has to be a silver lining. There's that when one door closes, another one opens. That doesn't always happen, and that's okay. Sometimes those things just shut, but we can still learn from them. And we don't have to force ourselves to find this pretty silver lining amongst that. Number 17, you're allowed to change your mind or your opinion. I struggled with this for many years because I thought, for some reason, that when we formed a decision or an opinion, it had to be forever. We were never allowed to change that because then, in my mind, that meant I was being unauthentic. What I actually have come to realize is you're more authentic when you're open to changing your mind. Because a lot of times that means you've listened to someone else. The goal of this podcast is to bring a variety of different people on to share their journey, because it's important to listen and say, you know what? I really thought one way for a very long time, but I've changed my mind on that. I've changed my opinion. I have seen a different side of the story. Sometimes also your life experience will dictate your opinion on something. So before I went through IVF, I did have different notions than I did post IVF. It's just the way of the world. So you're allowed to change your mind, and you don't have to cling so hard to the things that you once thought were true, because it actually makes you a much more open, vulnerable, embraceable human when you change your mind on something. Try anything once within reason, and don't be afraid to say you didn't like it. That's how you're going to know. And I say within reason because it's like, don't, go do a bunch of illicit drugs and drive a car. That's not smart. But try a new workout. Go try Zumba. You know what? Like if you've never been a dancer, how do you know you don't like Zumba? Go try it. See what happens. And it's okay to say, you know what, that's not for me. But I have the feedback now that I at least tried it once, and I have that information now. There are plenty of things. Okay, this is maybe a funny example, but it is a good one. Cottage cheese. I have a public apology to cottage cheese, because forever and ever and ever, I was like, I hate cottage cheese. I hate it. But I don't actually really ever remember trying it. And then about a year ago, I tried it again. I was like, wait, I love this. That's so weird that I thought that I really hated it. But if I didn't try it that one time, I'd never know. But there's also plenty of things that I have tried and I'm like, not for me. But at least we know now. So we're good. Number 19. Yes, 19. Boundaries getting crossed doesn't mean you have to change them for yourself. This one is so hard because there are so many people that just don't understand boundaries and why people put them in place and why they should not cross them. And I've been here, so I get it, but boundaries can be really hard for other people to not take personally. I know I used to take boundaries very personally, but just because someone crosses them doesn't mean you have to say, okay, I guess I'll just let that one go and keep compromising myself. And no, that just means that person doesn't get it, unfortunately. And it actually means that boundary is probably in place and should be in place for a good reason. All we can really do is speak up about what we need. And there were plenty of times during IVF in particular, I had to put up some really uncomfortable boundaries for other people because the way that we were interacting wasn't good for me mentally. And they got crossed a lot. But it doesn't mean that I shouldn't have kept trying, because those needed to be in place for a reason. So boundaries are going to get crossed, and it's not always going to be well received by other people, but it doesn't mean you have to let that boundary go. You still are very much so warranted to keep it up. Number 20, forgiveness is a great skill to learn, but make sure if you forgive someone, you really actually do. I have done this in my life, and this is why I find this one so important, because I have said before that I have forgiven something or forgiven someone, but deep down I really didn't. And it's still gnawed at me because in the other person's mind, I had closed that chapter. I had given the forgiveness that I didn't actually really give, and it comes out in some pretty nasty ways. So it's okay if you need some time to work through the forgiveness piece that you need to, do. But once you actually say, I forgive X, Y, and Z, make sure you really are in a place you're ready to forgive, because it's just going to come back up, but then you've stifled it within yourself because you've sort of half forgiven, half not. But it is a really great skill to learn. And forgiveness is very freeing and healing and therapeutic, but it's okay if it takes some time for you to get there and really get there, not just say you've gotten there. Number 21, if you can travel, even just an hour down the road, the more places, the more experiences. And Sedona is a great example. It was 2 hours. It was a driving distance. It wasn't some huge 2-week long vacation. And I was still able to get so much value out of that experience. We have been to some pretty incredible places, Spain and Italy and London. And what I love about those is getting to talk to people. The way that we travel is we'll go to a bar, talk to the bartender, and get some drinks and snacks. We'll just say, make us your favorite. And then when we're ready to leave, we ask them, where should we go next? And then we'll do whatever they say, because you're actually getting the very local experience. We're willing to try anything once because you don't know if you're not going to like it. And that really applies to traveling. And some of my richest experiences have come from traveling, whether that's 2 hours down the road or 8,000 miles away. It doesn't matter. Traveling is such a incredible thing to do, just to get more humans, just to talk to more humans, because we learn so much from other people. Let's see. Number 22, compliment someone when you feel the need, because a lot of times that's the day that person really needs it. I'll never forget, I was in a really dark place right after my dad died, and I was at a grocery store in Chicago, and I'm in the checkout line, and this woman comes up to me and taps me on the shoulder, and she's like, I'm sorry if this is creepy, but that dress is incredible, and it looks so good on you. I just needed to tell you that. And it was a day I so deeply needed it. And you can compliment someone about anything. Love your purse, love your dress. Of course, those are good ones. But I also love to say, like, your energy right now is like incredible. You are giving off the utmost positive vibe. And that is lovely. I love your laugh. I love your smile. I love your hugs. You can really create anything to compliment something on. And there's usually times where you really feel this overwhelming need to compliment someone, but it can kind of feel weird to do it, because a lot of times those people probably really need it that day, and you'll probably make their day. And I'll never forget that woman who came up to me in the Whole Foods. So thank you to that wonderful woman. Number 23, diet culture can fuck off, but we have a part to play in it. I unfortunately look back at even some of my posts from the early days of my page and I cringe, because I still really wasn't fully out of a diet culture mindset. But it is up to us to put out in the world what diet culture tries so hard to make loud. We're getting inundated every 5 seconds with ads and with things that tell us we're not good enough. And we have a part to play in it. Don't buy into brands or products that promote that. Don't spend your energy and time looking at accounts that promote diet culture tactics or make you feel less than, because a lot of us need to be doing small actions that make the change. There can't just be 4 people out there giving their 100% to it. We have to be willing to go in masses and do small things that add up to big change. See how all of these are connecting? You hear me? Anyway, I really hate diet culture. I really hate it. And if you follow me, you know. But call people out. If someone's like, oh, I feel fat today, say, that's not a way to talk to yourself. That's not something that's putting good energy out into the world. Call people out. I have no shame doing it. I do it all the time. So that's my 2 cents there. Number 24, if you are heated, draft your response, whether that's a text or an email or a letter, and sit on it for a day. I have gotten myself into hot water numerous times because I have popped off with an extremely heated, angry initial response. And it doesn't get us anywhere when we do that because that's just adding fuel to the fire. So draft that response that you want to say, write down everything. Doesn't matter. It can be stream of conscious. It doesn't have to be organized, but then sit on it because 9.8 times out of 10, I go back and I reread that and I'm in a much better mindset and a clearer mindset to revise that and actually formulate what I wanted to say versus a very quick, angry, heated in the moment message that's not going to do anything to ameliorate the situation. Ameliorate? I think that's the word. TBD. Let's see. Number 25. All right, this is actually a really good connection to number 24 is I feel statements are so helpful in any relationship, whether that's love, friend, business, where you're taking ownership of the way that you are feeling. So this was actually a really big one in my marriage and something that I think Duke and I have really, really worked on. And it's been really positive for us, where instead of saying, you make me feel stupid or you make me feel sad, it's, I feel sad because. So you're immediately taking ownership of the way that you are feeling rather than blaming. Because a lot of times it's hard when someone comes at you like that, it's really almost impossible not to feel defensive. But when I say, for example, so this is maybe like a silly one, but Duke has really been, he's really worked on making spaces tidy. He wasn't the tidiest of people when we first met, which is fine. But the way that I explained it to him, because he goes to bed later than I do, is I feel really stressed out if I walk downstairs in the morning and there's a lot of clutter. It's the first thing that I see and it's the first thing I interact with. And it makes me feel high alert. And he was like, oh, that makes sense. Okay. Because I wasn't like, you are dirty. You make things so chaotic. You make things stressful. I'm like, no, I feel like this because of X, Y, and Z. And it would just be really helpful. I would feel a little less stressed if things were just picked up. And he was like, cool, no problem. It was a really healthy conversation and it really does work. So I feel statements. I feel X, Y, and Z because of X, Y, and Z. Try it out. See what happens. Number 26, you won't always be right. That one kind of sucks, but it's true. And getting rid of the ego behind that is such a powerful thing. And saying, you know what, I was not right and I'm sorry. And that was on me. And I'm willing to listen and correct that statement or correct that feeling because I wasn't right there. And when you can say that and not hold so tightly to this I was right mentality, things go a lot easier. I just had a conversation with a friend where I was like, I was not right. That's on me. You know what? I wasn't right there. Apologies. And we got over it real quick. So we're good. 27. You can learn something from anyone, whether that is someone that you think you have no relation with, or even your best friend you can learn things from every day, even if you think you know everything about them. So this kind of also goes back to like talk to everyone, listen to everyone. There are a lot of people that I've been able to connect with on Instagram. And this actually is in particular people that do not want children at all. Because I've learned so much from them because I always knew I wanted kids and it was hard for us, yes, but I was willing to do anything to get them or get him. And I've had such interesting conversation with people that are childless by choice or even sometimes not by choice because that's just not the way that things worked out for them. But it is just fascinating the things that you can learn if you listen with an open mind because my journey doesn't have to be everyone else's. Listen to an astrophysicist, You know what? I'm bad at math. I don't know anything about astrophysics, but if I sat down with them for 10 minutes, I bet you anything we could A, find relation to each other somehow, and B, learn something from each other. So be open to all different kinds of people. 28, tell people that you love them frequently and often. Every time I hang up the phone with my mom, I love you, bye. My friends, I love you, bye. Say it all the time. There's no harm in saying I love you more. You don't want to have any regrets. And the one thing that I will say is my family is super big on telling each other that we love them every 5 seconds. So when my dad died, I knew with my whole heart he knew I loved him. He knew it. And it's because we said it every minute of every day, practically. Maybe too much. I don't know if people think it would be too much, but I tell Duke I love him 10 times a day. Just tell them. Why not? It's great. Number 29, take all the photos. Those are your memories. So we live in a world that we have technology at our hands and our fingertips. So take the photos and take them without the intention of posting them, because then you're not worried about getting the right angle and the right lighting and X, Y, and Z. Take them so you can look at them. I do this all the time. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I go back in my photo album and just look at pictures because it sparks memories and it sparks joy and happiness. And those will be your memories. And sometimes, yeah, I feel silly taking pictures of minute things or things that some people may find insignificant. But that one really beautiful flower that I saw on a walk one time, I take a picture of it. Then when I look at it, I'm like, I remember that day feeling so happy. This picture still brings me joy. So take all of the photos. We can. We have a phone in our hands at all times. Take them without the intention of posting them, because that makes it stressful, in my opinion. Number 30, start before you're ready. This right here, this podcast I started before I was ready. I felt a pull to do it. And I did hesitate for longer than I wish I did, because I felt like I had to have everything perfect. I had to have the exact setup and the exact guest list and the this and the that. And I had to know what I was doing. And that's not how anything that is kind of meaningful in your life goes a lot of times. We have to start before we have everything 100% in order, because nothing is ever going to be 100% in order. Nothing. We're going to have a lot of stuff that we need to learn along the way. And I have learned a lot along the way. And yes, I've enlisted some people to help me with these things, but oh my gosh, start before you're ready. I swear you can figure it out, and you will. Number 31, if nothing changes, nothing changes. We have to make changes in our lives in order to get places sometimes, whether that's a mindset or a mentality or physically moving your location. It is what it is. But if we resist that change, which a lot of times can feel less scary than making a change. So here's my mindset. A lot of times we stay in a situation maybe that's not the best because we know it. It is the familiar demon. And we don't know what's going to happen if we attempt to make the change. So we don't. So I don't. I've been there. I do this. I know this firsthand. And if we make no changes, we stay in that situation. So you have to be the one to fuel that fire, which can be really scary. I get it. Number 32, happiness is an inside job. And what brings us happiness a lot of times, or what we think brings us happiness, isn't actually what brings us happiness. A lot of times I think to myself, oh, that item, that material item is going to fix all my problems and make me happy. No. You know what makes us happy? Energy. Being around people that we love. Being surrounded by things that you enjoy, not monetary, but for me, it's like when I go on a beautiful walk, that is happiness. And it cost me no money, and it didn't require anything that fancy. But letting go of this thing that I used to have of X, Y, and Z will bring me happiness because I can buy it or hold it or whatever, made me actually realize that happiness truly is an inside job. because it comes from within and we get to choose what makes us happy. And a lot of times it's not going to be an external factor that brings you that. So that's just food for thought. Number 32. No, I lied. Number 33. Sometimes you just got to clap for yourself in the middle of the trudge. And this is really fascinating because what I usually find when you're doing something in life, the start gets a lot of hype and the finish gets a lot of hype. The in-between is really difficult. And it can be when a lot of people, not that they don't care, but they're not maybe going to be there when you're in the valley of it. They're going to be amped for you as you're starting it at the beginning, hee-ho, go, go, go. And if that happens to be something that's a finished product, they'll be really clapping and cheering at the end of it. But the middle is hard. And a lot of times we have to be the ones to clap for ourselves when you're in that midst of the center part. And it can be really hard to get that initial, clapping and cheering and then have it die off and be like, oh, why doesn't anyone seem to really care about this anymore? It's not that they don't. It's just everyone's, energy and is pulled in so many different directions. They're probably not going to have the space to be giving you 100% attention every second of the day, which is something I've also worked on in my life. But clap for yourself in the middle of it. This podcast, for example, I am blown away by the response by it, first and foremost, but small wins. The small wins that I've clapped for myself for is figuring out some audio stuff, is figuring out uploading stuff, is an episode hitting its highest downloads, things like that I really have to give myself my own hype man for, because not everyone's going to be cheering for you all the time. All right, we've done it. The last one, 34. It is a blessing to get another year older. And I'm not crying. I just joked. I really resisted getting older for a long time. And I really struggled with my birthday for a long time. And this is the first year I feel so at peace with who I am, where I am, how old I am, because it is truly a blessing to be able to call myself 1 year older, because it means that I get a whole nother year of experiences. It gets me more time with the people that I love. It gets me more opportunities to bring things into my life. And age shouldn't be scary. It should be something that we really embrace. And I am very grateful to be 34, happy and healthy, and with just a docket of things that I have found myself surrounding myself with in life. So embrace the age, however old you are. And I am happy to be celebrating 34 years with you all today on this episode. All right. If you have made it this far, thank you. This really was a stream of consciousness. I don't think I'm going to edit any of it. So this truly, really was me just going for it. And I appreciate you listening. And I hope everyone had a great 4th of July and is having a great 5th of July when this airs. I'm going to go eat some cake. I love you. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Welcome to My 10 podcast. I hope you had as much fun listening as I do recording. I am so happy to have you here, and see you next episode.